Jaylen Brown just signed the richest extension in NBA history with the Boston Celtics as him and the Celtics agree to a Supermax contract that's going to pay him over $60 million a year, and we're here to break that all down for you on this edition of Celtics Digest. Bruce, let's just get right into this. The richest deal in NBA history. It's kind of crazy that the man who owns this is now Jaylen Brown. I mean, former owners of this, Stephen Curry, but also someone like Mike Conley used to have the richest deal in NBA history. But now Jaylen Brown has joined the club as he signs the 5-year, $304 million Supermax contract with the Boston Celtics. Richest deal in NBA history, fully guaranteed with a trade kicker, no player option. Bruce, when you first saw this today, pop up on your phone and the Twitter notifications, what was your reaction? Are you pumped, or are you still one of those Celtics fans that's a little bit iffy on this move?
So personally, when I woke up this morning, I was really excited to see this Jaylen Brown news. I know that we've seen Jaylen Brown been talked about in the last couple of weeks. He had been in Europe for the past couple of weeks, and not a lot of Celtics fans were really sure about what this news was going to happen and how the deal was going to get done. But I'm very happy that this deal got done today.
Yeah.
I know that it's $60 million. I know that that's a lot of money. We've only seen guys like Damian Lillard get that extension. But I think that with the new CBA and with the contracts going up, I think that we're going to see a lot more contracts north and more worth than $60 million. So I think for Jaylen Brown, it's a great contract.
Yeah, it's something too, like, people see that number $60 million, and obviously in the history of the NBA, that looks completely insane, but when you look at it just as a percentage of team salaries, like, not that long ago, that's the equivalent of a $35 million Supermax extension, right? It's the same percentage of the salary cap. So yes, I understand there's complaints that, oh, he only made an All-NBA team when some other good forwards were injured. I get that, but at the same time, Bruce, like, my reaction is, it's awesome. He's locked up long term. We have him and Jayson, Tatum, Kristaps, Porzingis, the entire core for the next few years. I mean, do you think this is too much for Jaylen Brown? Because that seems to be a sentiment that I'm seeing all over the place.
Personally, I don't think it's that much. I think he's worth $60 million. I think that he is an all NBA second team player last year.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see him continue to develop. We're going to continue to see him to grow. Obviously, he has some dribbling problems with his left hand that we've seen in the playoffs, and that is one of the issues that many Celtics fans will bring upon us. But I think if he could work on his dribbling, work on his defense, I think he is one of the best two-way players in this league. He's one of the best wings in this league. I think him playing alongside Jayson Tatum, who complements him really well, as we've seen them make two very good and deep finals and playoff appearances runs, I think for the Boston Celtics, this was the smart decision to make.
Yeah, and you know what, Bruce, you actually brought up a really good point, because when I'm going on Twitter, which is just a terrible idea, or sorry, X, whatever, you're going on this and you're looking at these other people saying, oh, look, Jaylen Brown and Tobias Harris have the same stats. It's like, here's the thing. People just ignore the fact that Jaylen Brown is also an elite wing defender, like probably top 10, maybe even top 5 wing defender in the league at his best, right? So yes, his offensive game has a little bit to work on, but even then, he's an efficient 25 point per game scorer who brings you elite defense, and there's just not that many people in the league that can do what he does. So I feel like I agree with you. $60 million is the price you need to pay to keep a guy like him around. But speaking of that price, Bruce, we got to get into kind of a more serious topic when we're talking about the future of Boston, and that's the salary cap coming up in the next few years. So I'll show you guys a bit of a picture here. As you can see, the next 2 years are completely locked up. The entire core, Kristaps, Tatum, Brown, Brogdon, White, Rob Williams, Time Lord, and Al Horford, all of them locked up for at least next season and the year after. But Bruce, if we look there at 26-27, we know that's the year that Jayson Tatum will have to get his Supermax. Are you concerned at all for maybe the cap crunch that'll come in that year now, especially with some of the new CBA clauses making teams less and less likely to want to reach that luxury tax apron?
Honestly, I'm a little concerned for the Boston Celtics going into the salary cap going into those years, as we will have to extend Jayson Tatum, and he's been the main focal point for this Celtics team. Now, obviously, we extended Jaylen Brown to keep the team happy and to keep these stars here. But when you look at it, we also have guys like Derrick White, Malcolm Brogdon. Those guys are under contract. Kristaps, Porzingis. And when we get to those times, we're going to have to look at some possibilities for the Celtics, as those guys will be going off the contract. We'll have to give Jayson Tatum the extension. And we might have some free up cap space for sure, but we might be a little bit weaker in our point guard and guard development in the next couple of years if that is the case. Now, we also have a lot of second-round picks, so I think that the second-round picks could help out the Celtics if they were looking to move off some of these guys. But personally, I think that when we get to 26, 27, there are going to be some number crunching with some of the players. We might have to see one of the guys like Marcus Smart this year who got traded for number crunching deals be moved in a similar deal in a couple years to re-sign Jayson Tatum.
Yeah, you actually brought up another good point. You're full of those today, Bruce. But you said, in the next few years, we might have a bit of a lack of point guard development, right? We don't have a ton of great point guard prospects. And if I just flash this back up on the screen, 2025, when that comes around, Malcolm Brogdon and Derrick White are both UFAs. And Payton Pritchard, he's an RFA come next year. And yeah, you could sign him long-term, but I don't know if he's the long-term solution. So you have a couple choices. You can draft to fill that point guard spot and hope that you get a young point guard on a rookie deal as you're trying to enter that second part of the championship window in like 26, 27, or you got to make a UFA splash. So regardless, when that Jayson Tatum Supermax kicks in and Kristaps Porzingis is also off the books, there's going to be some money freed up, but you got to also think that just Tatum and Brown together are going to make up such a high percentage of the salary cap. I mean, you think the Celtics might have to almost rely on some guys that they drafted on cheap deals to really be a title contender when we're talking like 5-6 years in the future from now?
I think that's possible. I think that the Celtics might have to dive back into the draft capital in a couple years. Mm-hmm. We might have to see them experiment and go back into that. As we've seen in recent years, most of their draft picks, and Romeo Langford, Aaron Nesmith, some of those guys have been shipped off for other guys like Derrick White and those other pieces. And with the new CBA and with the new rules, I know that we got a bunch of second round picks. They might have to stack up some of those picks for a future first or a future multiple future seconds to then actually bring in and help out this team in the future with some other pieces. I know we drafted Jordan Walsh this off-coming summer, and he was pretty good in the summer league for this Boston Celtics team. I think that he would be a good fit, and he could develop and kind of turn into another Grant Williams role. Sure. So I think that with the Celtics, we got to kind of see at these prospects and look at them, try to evaluate them, and figure out what we need to do.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a good point. Like Brad Stevens knows what he's doing. Celtics management know what they're doing, right? Exactly. There's not going to be a ton of money. They're going to make it work with Jayson Tatum. They're going to make it work any way they can, right? But we know the next 2 years is really a huge championship window. And on the other side of that, they'll figure it out. You got one extra year at Kristaps. You got to fill that point guard hole. But I think Boston's going to be a contender for many, many years to come, especially if Tatum ends up signing that Supermax. So we probably have a nice contender for the next 4 or 5 years at the minimum, and nothing makes me happier than that. The final thing I wanted to talk about today is why was this, or I said trade here. Well, let's ignore that says trade. Let's pretend that says extension, because that's what I was talking about. But what held it up? Because this took way longer than a lot of us were comfortable with, right? We thought like, oh no, is he not actually going to sign? Like they said he was going to sign around Summer League. Well, there were a lot of little details in the trade, I keep saying that, in the extension that I feel like they needed to figure out first. And the reason I said trade is because there's a trade kicker. That was what was in my head this whole time, but this is one of the main things. There's a trade kicker, less than the 15% max, so it's probably around 10, 12%, and he's on a 6-month pay schedule. So not to mention the trade kicker, which if you guys don't know is just like if they trade that player, they have to pay him a bonus of his salary already. So if he's making $60 million and the trade kicker's 10%, he'd make $6 million if you traded him off. But the 6-month pay schedule, Bruce, have you ever seen that? Like it just sounds like
no.
Jaylen Brown went out and asked for a pay advance. I mean, I guess times are tough even for him.
He might have ventured out with Harden and had a nice little spa day or something like that. Had a good time at the club, but I've never seen anything like that. Maybe, like you said, he needed some money up front. Maybe he needs something to cover him. But he has been doing a lot for the Celtics organization as a whole with a lot of things around the Boston area. So that is one good thing that he's been doing. And I'd like to see that he's obviously using this money to help him out for the future of his brand and for himself.
Yep, 100%. I mean, we actually saw it, too. He didn't want to do a regular press conference. He wanted to announce his extension officially at MIT with his juice program. So you got to think maybe a 6-month pay schedule gives him some more freedom to pay into those things and help out the causes that he truly cares about. So, yeah, really, really cool. But yeah, guys, I mean, he signed. Jaylen Brown is here for 5 more years on a Supermax. Yeah, it's a lot of money. We don't care. The Boston Celtics are going to be contenders for many, many years to come, and we are extremely excited. That'll do it for this edition of Celtics Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel, help boost us up in the YouTube algorithm. We would really appreciate it. I'm Josh Gosse, for my co-host Bruce Veliz. We'll catch you in the next one.